Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on this bracelet and I'm using that gorgeous Krakowski crystal octagon stone. This is the 27 by 18 millimeter and that's from the Charming Cottage collection. And that's the collection that Gina from Orchid and Opal Beaded Jewelry curated with Eureka crystal beads. And that stone is so gorgeous. So here's the stone that came with the collection. This gorgeous tanzanite, and I've used some of the beads from the collection, and then some, of course, I've added from my stash, like the fire polish, but we'll get to that when we do the materials list. But here's the other one. You know, this was another sample that I made, and I think it came out so pretty, simple, but yet I really think it's very pretty. All right, so let's get a materials list going so we can get started. Let's get a materials list going. So I used some of the beads from the collection and some from my stash. So the collection has a Miyuki mix of 15-0, 11-0, and 8-0. I used the 8-0s. I used all of them. But to do the bracelet, you're going to have more than the amount of 11-0s that comes in that mix. So I just added some for my stash. You need a couple of delicas. There's a delica in the collection. I didn't use that one. I used two delicas because I just wanted to do an alternating silver and purple. But you can just use one. There's a big mix of 11-0s. I love this mix in the collection. I chose some of those to do some embellishment. I also used some of the 15-0s. There's a 15-0 Miyuki mix in the collection as well. So I picked out some just to work on put a little embellishment around the face of the vessel. We've got the 4mm bicones from the bicone mix. That's in the collection, and that I used down the center. And I added my own fire polish bead. And you could also use this, I believe you probably could use this 4mm faceted round from the collection too. Okay, so I have that. So I added the fire polish. And let's see, what else do we need? Of course, we need that big, gorgeous stone. That is so pretty. And then you need a clasp. And I took a couple of little toggle clasps, really small ones, and I used two of them. I felt like it needed two. So that was from my stash. You need a stop bead. You need needles. You're going to need size 11. You can use a 10, 11, and you need a couple of 12s because you're going to be going through a lot of tiny beads and you might need more than one size 12 beading needle because it might bend. You never know. So have a few handy. Did I say stop bead? Oh, and as far as thread is concerned, here we go. I used Fireline Thermally Fused Tough. I used 6 pound. You have 4 pound. That would work too. I think 4 pound going through tiny beads is really a good thing to have as well. So here, let me pop that there. All right, here you go. Here's everything. So I'm going to clear this off and we'll get started. Before we start, I just want to mention that everything I'm using here will be listed in the description box below the video. So you will just click the down arrow, the show more, the 3 dots under the video. The box will open and everything will be there. All sizes, shapes, colors, amounts, links to purchases. If you would like to look at the collection, I'll put a link to that in as well. I'll also put the colors to this bracelet there, so in case you would like to take a look at those. All right, so also, if you would please like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my videos, that's so helpful to me. All right, let's get started. So thread your needle with I do about 5 feet of thread, put on a stop bead around the middle. So I'm going to use both ends of the thread. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead 64 delicas, and I alternated colors. So I started with a purple, and then I did a silver and a purple and a silver, etc., until I had 64 beads on my thread. I'm going to sew these into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead, which is the purple bead. So this purple delica. It's just going to look like so. Okay, let's add some beads on. So I'm going to pick up a silver delica. I'm exiting the purple one. I'm going to skip the next silver and sew through the following purple. So I'm picking up a bead, skipping a bead, sewing through the next bead. Picking up a silver, exiting the purple. So if you're alternating, when you're coming out of a purple, you put your silver bead on. But if not, if you're doing on one color, you're picking up a bead, skipping a bead, sewing through the following bead. Just like that. So I want you to put on 4 of your delicas. So here, picking up a delica, exiting here, skipping one, sewing through the next one, one more, So this is what we have. Next up, we're going to pick up an 11-0. So just the round 11-0. Exiting the purple, so exiting here, skipping one bead, sewing through the next bead. So you're going to put 2 of your 11-0s on. So 1, 2. So we're kind of establishing the corners now. So just like that. We're going to go back to our delicas. We're going to just pick up a delica, skip a delica, sew through the next one. So you want to do this until you have 8 more of your delicas on. So I've added 8 delicas, the silver ones, and now I'm going to pick up the 11-0s again. I'm going to add 2. So exiting here, skipping a bead, sewing through the next bead. That's 1. Another 11-0. 2. So just like that. I'm going to add more delicas now. So we're going to add 4 delicas. So exiting the purple, skipping 1, sewing through the next one. That's 1. 2, 3, 4. I get my needle in there. There we go. 4. That was tough. And then you're going to add your 2 11-0s. Okay, so I've added my 2 11-0s. Now I'm going back to my delicas. I'm going to add 8 delicas. So exiting the purple one, skipping the next one, sewing through the following purple one. You got it. So do that. So you have 8 delicas on. Okay, we're going to add our last 2 beads, which are the 11-0s. So we've made the corners here. So picking up an 11-0, sewing through, skipping this one, sewing through the next delica, and then you're going to step up with your next 11-0. So pick up your 11-0. You're exiting right here. You're going to skip this one, and you're going to sew through this delica and then the one on the diagonal. So it's the purple one and then through the silver one, like that. And now you have, your setup for your stone. Okay, so let's put some more beads on. So we're exiting, we've stepped up and we're exiting this silver delica here. Now I'm going to put on the purple ones. So I'm going to pick up a purple delica and I'm going to sew through the next bead, the up bead or sticking out bead right there. So we're going to add more of our purple. So another one. Another one. Like that. One more. Through the 11-0. And then I want you to pick up an 11-0 and sew from this 11-0 to this one. So again, we're making our corner. Then you're going to go back to your delicas, picking up a delica, sewing through the next up bead or sticking out delica. I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around. So check my... Okay, so sometimes I'm just going to leave that in. Like I split my thread here, so I need to take it out and get my thread out. So I went through this thread and split it. But you're just going to continue putting your purple or your color delicas all the way till you get to the next corner where you have your 11-0s, put an 11-0 in between those. Just doing that all the way around. As you go around and you get to your corners, you can kind of put your thumbnail in, give it a little pull inward like that. Just starting to get the shape going. So just continue that all the way around. Just a little reminder, when you get to the corner, you're putting an 11-0 in between the 11-0s. And then you're going to go back to your purple or whatever color delica you're using there. Okay, I'm coming down to my last corner, and because it's curving, I kind of put it on my finger here. So here, this is my last corner. So I'm putting on my delica and then the 11-0 in between the 2 11-0s. Like that. And then we're going to step up. So we're going to pick up our last Delica. This is the purple one. I'm exiting this 11-0. I'm just going to sew through this silver one and then the purple one on the diagonal. That's just going to finish my round. So just like that. So when I hold it, we're sort of getting a little bit of a rectangular shape here. This is what we have so far. We've put on all those purple Delicas. Now I'm just going to put this needle and thread aside. We're going to get back to it. I'm going to turn our piece over to this side and we're going to add some beads on this side. So on this side, you'll be exiting, see if I can clear things up a little bit. With this thread, you'll be exiting one of the interior Delicas here. So right here, I'm exiting this purple one. I'm just going to sew through this silver one so that I can get to the outside and add beads on. So now I'll see how I'm set up to add more beads on. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do on this side is we're going to decrease. So you'll be exiting a Delica right here. I'm just going to, I'm no beads on my needle, I'm going to sew through the next Delica. So each time we come to this little corner here where you have the 3 11-0s together, you're going to decrease. So this is our first decrease right here, just sewing through that next Delica. So just like that. So we've made our first decrease just by sewing through that next Delica. You see when I push it together, it kind of makes a little corner. So now we're going to pick up 15-0s and we're going to add a 15-0 in between each Delica. So just like so. Until we get to our next corner. So just keep adding your 15-0s until you get to the next area where you have the 3 11-0s. Okay, we're getting to the point where we're going to decrease again. So I'm going to put this 15-0 on right here through the Delica, and then here, this is where I have these 2 Delicas under those 3 11-0s. I'm just going to advance my needle right through the next Delica, like that. And that's going to give me another decrease. So you're going to do that all the way around. So whenever you're going to put on your 15-0s, and when you get to the 2 Delicas that are beneath these 3, you're just going to sew right through to decrease. Coming around to my last corner, so here I'm going to add a 15-0 here. Like so. And then I'm going to do my decrease right here and immediately step up. So I'm exiting this Delica here. I put this 15-0 on. I'm going to sew through this Delica. That's going to do my decrease, and then the 15-0 on the diagonal, which is going to step me up. So this is what it looks like so far. Okay, we're going to add another round of 15-0s. Now this is going to be the back of my bezel. So I'm just going to pick up a 15-0 and sew through the next 15-0. So the up bead, which is that 15-0. And I'm going to do that all the way till I get to the corner. So just putting 15-0s on. Like so. So I'll meet you down at this corner. So I'm at the corner, so I put this 15-0 on. I came through this one. Now I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s, and I'm going to sew from this one to this one. So from this 15-0 to that next 15-0. So I'm just putting 2 in the corner. And then I'm going to continue on till I get to the next corner. So here I'm at the next corner. So I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s. Exiting this 15-0. Just going to hop over to this one. Just put 2 in the corner there. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Okay, coming down to my last 2 15-0s in the corner here. So here I put this one on, came through this one. I'm going to sew from this one over to this one, just like what we've been doing, and then just immediately step up here by going through the one on the diagonal. So just like that. Okay, this is what we have so far. So I'm going to turn this over to the front. So this is going to be my front. I mean, I guess you can make either one your front, but I'm going to make this the front. I'm just going to lay my stone and it's not going to stay. You're exiting a Delica. So I'm exiting the purple Delica. I'm going to start adding 15-0s on. So just adding a 15-0 in between each of the Delicas here. And when I get to the corners, I'm just going to continue adding 15-0s. I'm not going to change anything. So I'm just picking up a 15-0. I'm going to sew through. I'm exiting the Delica right there. I'm just going to sew through that first. That 11-0 in the corner, picking up a 15-0, sewing through the next Delica. So you're just putting a 15-0 in between each of your up beads or sticking out beads. So you're just going to do that all the way around. Just a note, as I'm going around, I'm just trying to keep the stone corners, see where these corners are, where my 11-0s are. Just, you'll be able to adjust that, not a problem. The snow's not going to stay for a while, but I'm just trying to keep it in that vicinity. And I'm giving a pull inward as I put on my 15-0. So you're just going to put a 15-0 on, just like we've been doing all the way around. So remember, when you get to your corners, you're just adding a 15-0 in the corners, just like, you're not changing anything. You just happen to be going through an 11-0 over there, and then back through your Delicas. Just like that. Coming down to my last 15-0, I'm going to step up, so I'm exiting this Delica. I'm going to sew through, picking up a 15-0, sew through the Delica, and then the 15-0 on the diagonal, just like that. And now you're going to add another round of 15-0s. Okay, so adding this round of 15-0s, just again, when you get to the corner, you're just going to just sew, just through each of your up beads or sticking out beads. And just all 15-0. So you're just going to do that all the way around. Okay, coming down to the end, I'm going to step up. So here I'm exiting my 15-0. I'm picking up my 15-0. I'm going to sew through this 15-0 and then the one on the diagonal to step up like that. This is what it looks like so far. I'm going to add one more round. So I'm just going to pick up a 15-0 and I'm going to sew through each 15-0, and it should fit nicely in there. I mean, sometimes you don't need to add another round, but I think you need another round on this. So just keep going around with this particular stone anyway. So keep going around. Okay, let's step up. So picking up my last 15-0. Exiting this one, I'm just going to sew through this 15-0. So that next one, and then the one on the diagonal. And this is what we have. Gee, that's a pretty stone, isn't it? I love that color. Okay, so I added another round on the front. So I just added another round of 15-0s, and I like it. It's really pretty this way. So it's up to you if you want to do another round of 15-0s. I didn't want to do it, right away because I wanted to see how it would look first. And I think it looks really nice. I like how that looks. So if you want to add another round of 15-0s on, go ahead and just add another round of 15-0s on, and then you can sew this thread in. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to put on some 11-0s. And that's going to be setting us up for putting the bracelet on. So I've threaded my needle with a few feet of thread, put on a stop bead, left a tail to sew in. And if you turn your piece to the side, I've sewn through one of the Delicas right here. So we have 2 silver, and then 2 purple, and 2 silver. So it's going to be the middle silver right here. So if you want to use the color as a reference, there are 4 of the color, and then there's the silver. Or the second Delica from the back edge. So here's the first and here's the second, and I'm using the I've come through the silver bead. I'm going to pick up a silver bead or whatever color you're making your band, because my band, the metallic around the beads, this one was in gold, so I put gold around or bronze, and I'm going to make this in silver, so I'm going to put silver on, but you can do any color you like. So I'm picking up an 11-0. Exiting this Delica, I'm going to sew through the next one. So just like that. I'm going to do that again, picking up an 11-0, exiting this delica. I'm going to sew through the next silver delica. Just staying in line. I'm putting an 11-0 in between each of the delicas. And when you get to the top, you'll just go through the 11-0s and then continue on. I've got a few 11-0s on and I'm approaching the corner. I called it the top. Well, sort of the top corner there. So I'm going to put an 11-0 on. I'm just going to sew through the delica, from that delica through this 11-0. So you're not changing anything. You're just staying in line. You just happen, in the corners, they happen to be 11-0s that you're going through. So just like that. And then you'll continue putting 11-0s on between the delicas. And you're just going to do that all the way around. Okay, so I've come all the way around, putting on my last 11-0. So here's my 11-0. Just going to sew through that delica right here. That's where we started. So just like that. This is what it looks like. Now, I'm just going to give it a little pull. And then I'm going to advance my needle from this delica to this one, to this purple one with the color, or the one on the diagonal. And give that a pull, just like that. I'm going to add some more 11-0s. So here's my, my sample. So here's the gold delicas in between here, or the bronze, and then I put a sort of turquoisey color one right here. So let's do that. So for this one, I'm just going to pick another kind of purple. So this is more of a warmer purple. I thought that would be a nice contrast. So I'm exiting this delica, the purple one. I'm just going to sew through the next one. So it's adding another layer. And so that bead's going to sit in between the two 11-0s that we put on, the silver 11-0. So I'm just going to do that all the way around. So like so. Just continue that. And when you get to the top, the corner here, you're just going to, you'll just be sewing from a delica to an 11-0, 11-0 to the delica, with your 11-0s. All right, let's do that and then we'll continue. Just coming to the corner, just thought I'd do it with you. So here we're exiting this delica. I'm just going to sew through the 11-0. That's just the next one in line. Right there. And then moving on, going through the 11-0 to this delica right here. And if you're having trouble I notice like on the sides here a little bit, it's hard to get the needle through. Just maneuver it a little bit. Even if you go through, let's say your needle goes through the next one, you can always back out. But just kind of maneuver around and sort of slant your needle a little bit. They'll go in. Okay, so I'm coming down to the end, and this last purple bead is going to go right here, and I'm going to sew through the purple, but I also want to sew through this 15-0 on the diagonal. My needle went there anyway because it's a little tight in there. So if your needle goes through to this one, that is fine, because we're going to work on put a little more embellishment around the face. So if you go through this way, that's absolutely fine. If you could just get through the purple, that's fine. Then you could move over. We're going to move over it yet again, but if you go through these two, this little 15-0 after the purple, that's fine. I hope that wasn't too confusing. So here you'll be exiting either, hopefully this 15-0 right here, and then I want you to move on the diagonal through the next one. See if I get my needle in there. There we go. Now you can change to a size 12 beading needle, if you're having trouble getting through. See, I bent my needle a little, but that's okay. Now I'm stuck on my pliers. Okay, there we go. So see where I'm exiting here? I'm exiting this 15-0 right here. So we're going to add some beads, not yet though. We're going to add beads from here to here. I mean, that's going to be optional. If you don't want to do that, you can just go ahead and sew this thread in, but I'm just going to put this thread aside for now. So this is what it looks like. Okay, so before we move on, I just want you to sew in your tail thread. But I want you to do it really nice and tight. So you should be exiting a 15-0, you know, somewhere on the back there. I kind of move my thread a little bit, but you'll just move from a 15-0 through, you know, a 15-0 on the diagonal, and then you want to go through, sew through a delica, okay? And then, so you'll be in the delicas here. You just want to sew on the diagonal through the delicas, whichever way you're going, because like I said, I moved my thread. So there, through here, and then on the diagonal, and keep going around your bezel, and then you want to reverse direction and lock it in. So when you reverse direction here, it's going to be hard to get through the interior delicas. So let's say you're exiting here, just reverse direction by going through a 15-0. So the 15-0 that's right next to the delica you're exiting, and then back through the delica. And that's that will lock it into place. And then you just continue on the diagonal through the delicas, and maybe, you know, so, you know, lock it into place a couple more spots, and then you can clip off this thread. This is what we have so far. We're going to still leave that little thread there because I'm going to try and get another bead on the front, but that's optional. Turning on the back to start the bracelet. So I'm going to use these beads right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these 11-0s, because then here you get to where the point is, and here's where the corners are. So these 7 right in here are perfect for the bracelet. So I've threaded my needle with about 5 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and I left a pretty long tail to sew in. And I've come through the first of the 7. So I've just come through with my needle. My thread is exiting that first bead. Okay, and I'll do a little interlace. So I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s. I'm exiting this bead right here. I'm going to sew through the other side of that bead. And that's going to place those 3 11-0s on, just like that. So I have a little right angle weave unit there. Okay, so I have my little unit on. Now I'm going to skip this one, and I want to put another unit here, but I'm going to try and sew through the delicas. Now just take your needle, so we're exiting this 11-0. I'm going to sew through this delica, so that's the next one in line. You might want to change to a size 12 beading needle here just to get these on. So there, so now I'm exiting, just pull this out of the way, that interior delica. I'm going to sew through the next 11-0, and then I'm going to sew through the next delica. I'm doing it on an angle. You see that? So that's the way I'm getting through these delicas. Otherwise, it might be impossible. So next 11-0, and then the next delica, and then this 11-0. Okay? We'll do it again. So just like that, I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through the other side of the 11-0 I'm exiting. Like that. Now I have 2 of the units on, and continue on now. So I'm exiting this 11-0. I'm going to sew through the next delica, which is the silver one. I'm doing it on the diagonal, kind of. See that? So that my needle goes through easily. So there. And then the next 11-0. Like that. Make sure I'm not twisted. And then the next delica, just sewing through in that direction, just so it goes through easily. And then this 11-0. So just a little bit of a, maybe a little more difficult. Actually, it wasn't difficult getting through if you just angled the needle. So now I'm exiting here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put the 3 on, and then, I'm going to skip one, and I'm going to, do the same thing here. So I'll just let you put your 3 11-0s on here. Okay, so here are my 3 11-0s. Just sewing through the other side of the 11-0 I'm exiting. And then I'm going to sew through the delica. Again, I'm sort of slanting it a bit to get through there. Like that. And then the next 11-0. This is the hardest part. Like that. And then I'm going to sew through the next delica on my angle, and then the next 11-0, just like that. So I have 3 of my units on, and I'm just going to do that. My last one, 3 11-0s. I'm going to sew through the other side of the 11-0 I'm exiting, just like that. Okay, so you're just going to stop at this point. So you have your 4 units on. See, and that's where your, this is really close up here, that's where your bracelet's going to attach. So you just be exiting, you know, you just put on your last 3 11-0s, came through the other side of that bead. So just get to that point and then we'll continue. Okay, so we are exiting this, we put this last group of 3 on and we're exiting right here. So I want to reinforce this. Now I already did it and the clip wasn't good, so I'm going to have to talk you through this. So what we're going to do here, you're exiting this 11-0. I want you to sew through this delica. I don't think I can do it twice. So right through there, see? Well, maybe I can, let me see if I can do it again, just so I can show you. So right through there. Okay, so exiting this one. You can see it coming out right there. I'm going to sew through this one. This purple one right here. This one. And then I'm going to go through this one. So this is the one where I started. I'm not sure I can get through again. I don't want to break my bead because I've already done it. So I'm just going to talk you through it. Go through this one, right? So the silver one right here, and then through this one, and you'll be back where you started from. So you just reinforced and came around through this one again. So I'm just going to back out of this because I'm afraid I'm going to break this bead, and I'm going to meet you here. Okay, so we're exiting right here. I'm just going to, so this 11-0 here, I'm going to sew through this one. And then this one. So the, oops, sorry, I got caught. There we go. So that one right there. So the point bead, you know, tip bead right there. So this is where we're going to start our band or our bracelet. Before we start adding beads, I want you to sew the tail thread in. You know, so this is where we started, right? So here's the tail thread here. I don't have a needle on that thread, but take off your stop bead and you're exiting here. Just come down through the delicas, come around again, and then sew through your delicas just a little bit, just to solidify this end as well. And then we'll start adding the bracelet beads on. Okay, so we're exiting the top of this right angle weave unit here. So I have some fire polish. I took some of the 4mm bicones out of the collection. There had enough because I'm just going to put one down the center of each side. So I had there were 18 of them, at least 4mm in the collection, because the bicones are, you know, it's a mix. And I've got some 11-0s. So I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s. Exiting here, I'm just going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. I'll pull them a little bit. There we go. Just like that. Then I'm going to pick up a fire polish and I'm going to sew through the top bead of the next unit. I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s. I'm going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. So this is our little interlace pattern. Remember how much fun, for those of you who've been with me forever, how much fun we had playing with this little fun little sort of design. So here, this is what it looks like. Exiting here. Now I'm going to pick up the bicone. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next 11-0. You know, of that top hole of the next right angle weave unit. I'm going to pick up 3 of my 11-0s. 2, 3. I'm going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. Like that. I'm going to pick up a fire polish. I'm going to sew through the next top bead of the next right angle weave unit. And don't worry about if they get a little bunchy looking. The interesting thing about this sort of design, is that it looks really bad for the first several rows, and then it just looks so beautiful after. So here I'm just 3 11-0s sewing through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. This is what it looks like so far. Okay, I'm going to sew through, so I'm exiting right here. I'm going to sew through the side seed bead of that unit, and then the top seed bead. Okay, let's add some beads on. So I'm going to add 3 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. And I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next right angle weave unit. So we're placing 3 11-0s in between where I have my fire polish, you know, or your whatever your 4mm are. 3 11-0s, and sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. Like so. 3 11-0s, you're going to get tired of me hearing this from me, so I won't stay on forever doing this. 3 11-0s through the next top bead of the next right angle weave unit. 3 11-0s through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. Three 11-0s through the top hole of the next right angle weave unit. Like that. I don't like that. I have a big chunky bead there. I'm going to take that out and redo. Okay, so the 3 11-0s through the top hole of the next right angle weave unit. That's better. 3 11-0s. Sometimes you get a huge bead and you don't even see it until you have to put after it's on. So sewing through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. So what it looks like so far. I'm going to sew through the side bead and then the top bead of this unit. Like so. So this is what we have so far. We have all our little right angle weave units on, and we put 3 11-0s in between. Now we're going to go back to putting on the 4mm. Okay, we'll just get through this row. So 3 11-0s through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. And on this row, I'm going to pick up the 4mm. I'm going to sew through the top bead of the next right angle weave unit. Got it. 3 11-0s. Sewing through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. Just kind of pulling it so it's kind of snug. Then I'm going to pick up my bicone. So the top bead of the next right angle weave unit. 3 11-0s. Sewing through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. And as you go down, this is going to be, it really pulls together beautifully. And we're also going to do a little reinforcing down the road. But right now we're just going to get these beads on. Fire polish. 3 11-0s. Oops, that's a delicate. Sewing through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. I'm going to sew through the side bead and the top bead. Move my thumb in a second of that unit. Like so. And now I'm ready to put some more beads on. So I'm just going to alternate doing that, you know, one row of the 4 millimeters, and then I'm going to do the 3 11-0s, then all the 4 millimeters and 3 11-0s with these guys in between them. So I'm just going to let you go ahead and continue doing that, just to give you a little look of what it's going to look like. Really, it's going to be very, very pretty. All right, so keep doing that. I did 9. I had 9 fire polish or 4 millimeters for my band. My bracelet before the clasp, so all the beading, including this, you know, the length was 5.5 inches, and my clasp was about 1 inch, so it gave me 6.5. You can always extend the end, and when we get to the end, I'll show you how to extend if you need to. You can just put, well, I'll just show you real quick. You can just put the 11-0s and the right angle weave units on. Makes it really pretty and lacy. And you can use that as your extension, like say if you run out of the 4 millimeters, or you just want to, you know, just extend it in that way. All right, so just keep adding your rows on, and then we'll come back and we'll continue. We're going to also reinforce all of these again too. So, you know, we got a little bit of work ahead of us. Just a note while I add this last, you know, this round on, not last, this row, not this last row. Now I'm, you know, doing the 3s, and this is where when you end your side of one side of your bracelet, this is how I want you to end it. I want you to end it with the 11-0s, not, you know, the fire polish. On the other one, I ended the other way, but I thought it would be nice to do it this way. So here. There we go. I'll just finish this row with you. Like so. Then my last little right angle weave unit. That. So through the side bead, I'll move my thumb in a second, and the top bead. So this is how I want you to end, you know, the last row before your clasp. So as you see on this side. Okay. All right. Keep going down. Keep adding your 4 millimeters and your, you know, your different rows, and then we will continue on after this and add the clasp on and do a little more embellishing. So I'm going to add a few 15-0s before we do the clasp around. You just want to finish off the bezel in the front. Now, I know it's hard to see, but there is a little 15-0 sort of purpley color. My lights are kind of washing it out because it's sort of transparent-ish. See, there it is. So remember, we were exiting, I don't know if we're exiting in the same place because I started this already. So you were exiting one of the 15-0s in the interior here. Remember, we came through and we came through this 15-0. I'm exiting here. I'm going to pick up a 15-0, and I'm just going to sew from this one to this one, just to place that 15-0 right there. And then I'm going to pick up another one. I'm going to go from this one to this one. So just doing a little stitch in the ditch, and you're going to do that all the way around until you're done with that, and then you can just sew that thread in and clip it off. Okay, so I finished all my little 15-0s, and while it's, you know, you really don't like it, it's hard to see face on like that, but when you go to the side, you see that little 15-0 there, so you're just adding a little more dimension and a little more color shift there. So when the light hits it, you'll see a little color shift going on there. All right, so you're going to just sew that thread in. I'm going to clip it off, and then we're going to start the clasp. Okay, let's add the clasp. So I'm adding 2 toggle clasps, 2 very small ones, and that seemed to work really well. So I took 3 jump rings and I added them to the toggle bar. See that? Actually, this is a piece of chain because I didn't have any the size jump rings I wanted, but there. So just like that. So you want to make sure that the one that's going to attach to the bracelet is facing in this direction. So like that. And then I put 3 on the toggle bar, and that's so you can get it through the ring easier. And then here I have 1 on the toggle ring. Okay, so here's our sequence. We're going to, so we're exiting, we've come through this first bead here. Sorry, my lights are kind of washing things out. I'm going to pick up an 8/0. I'm going to go through the ring. I'm going to pick up another 8/0, and I'm going to go through the top bead here of that right angle weave unit. So when I pull, I want to make sure that ring stays in between the 8/0s. So just like that. So we're exiting that top bead of this right angle weave unit. We put the 8/0s on. I'm going to sew through the side bead, the bottom bead, and then I'm going to continue on through all the beads again. So the bottom bead, the 3 11/0s, and then the bottom 11/0 of this unit, of that right angle weave unit. Just going around in a circle here, like that. Then I'm going to go through the side bead, the top bead, the 8/0, the ring, the 8/0. Just going around again, just to really secure this through this top bead. So this 11/0 here. The side one. So again, coming around again. Then the bottom one, and right through this group again and out. So through the 3 in the middle. Let me just do those a couple at a time. And then the bottom bead of that end right angle weave unit. So we've just gone in a circle, pop that ring down in between the 8/0s, and now, so we've gotten that nicely secured, and it'll be more secure when you sew the tail thread in. Now we're just going to sew through this way. We're going to go through this bead. So that's this bead of this right angle weave unit, and right through all the beads. So I've gone through the fire polish, the 11/0, the bicone, the 11/0, the fire polish, and the 11/0, like that. Stay with me. I just want to set us up to get the other end of the clasp on. All right, actually, just stop at that point, and then we'll move up to put the other ring on. Okay, let's keep going. So we're exiting this 11/0 on the side of this fire polish. I'm going to sew through this 11/0. So that's the right angle weave unit here. And this one, so you see those 4 beads, that's the top of that right angle weave unit. Like that. And then I'm going to sew through the 3 in the middle, those 3, and the bottom bead of that next right angle weave unit, just like that. Oops. I'm just going to turn my piece a little bit. So I'm exiting here. I'm going to sew through the side bead, like so. And then the top bead of that right angle weave unit. So we're just kind of snaking around so that we end up over here, just like that. Okay, so we're exiting this 11/0. So we're going to put the 8/0 on, come through the ring, put another 8/0 on, and come through the top bead of this right angle weave unit. Just putting that second one on, just like that. Just like we did before, you're just going to reinforce all the way around. So through this one, through this bead, the 3 in the middle, and then the bottom bead of the next right angle weave unit. Can't get them all at once, just do them a few at a time. So that's the 3 in the middle. Pop that in, make sure that's going to stay there. And then here, I'm going to advance, get through the bottom hole of that right angle weave unit, or the bottom bead. Right here. Then get my needle in there. There we go. Like so. And then the side bead of that right angle weave unit right there. And then the top. I know it's hard to see silver on camera, but just keep going around the right angle weave units through these 3 again. 8-0, ring 8-0, like so, through the top of this one. This one. We're done, almost done. And then we're going to sew right back through the bottom hole of this unit and then right through all the beads again. So just gonna make my way down like that. Through all these guys here till I've just come across that whole side. All right, I know that was very picky, but you know, you really want this to be strong. So this is what we have so far. We're exiting out the this line, so the bottom, we're exiting the bottom bead of this right angle weave unit on the end. Okay, now comes the fun part. We're going to reinforce this whole piece. It's going to be so easy. So you're going to do the same thing with the other side here, you know, putting your toggle bar on. Only, you know, you'll just go through the ring exact same way. Okay, and then so just get you started on reinforcing this. Exiting here, I'm going to sew through this 11-0 and then right through all these beads. So the 11-0, the fire polish, the 11-0, the bicone 11-0, fire polish 11-0, like so. I'm going to sew through this 11-0 to move over one and then back down through all of these 11-0s. Just make sure you're getting all the beads. Look on the back. You know, if you can't get them all at once, just do some of them. And then get the rest of them. Like so. Yep, so far so good. And as you do this, it's going to, you know, it's like reinforcing the whole bracelet. So I've moved over through this bead and it just makes it look so pretty. Okay, through all of these guys. You got it. So that's what it looks like on the end. So you're just going to keep doing this all the way down till you get to your bezel. Okay, coming down to the end, so I've just sewn through, you know, I've reinforced everything and I've sewn through all the fire polish, the bicones and the 11-0s, exiting here. So just like I'm going to move down, I'm going to sew through this one, and then I'm going to sew through this bead here. So I'm exiting this side of the right angle weave unit. I'm going to sew through this one. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and I'm going to sew through the next 11-0. I don't even know if this is necessary, but I thought I'd finish it off on the back a little bit, and you know, we have one more round to do. So 15-0 in between, you know, through the next 11-0, and use a size 12 beading needle here if you need to. And just do that all the way down that line. I'm going to place my last 15 on. You know, I just placed them, in case that wasn't clear, in between the 11-0s, right against the bezel. So here, putting on the last one, it's going to go right here. Just like so. Now you have that part done. We just have one more round to do. I want to put some 11-0s around the back so it doesn't, you know, so that the back of the stone isn't laying on your wrist. So I'm exiting this 11-0 here. I'm just going to hop over to this delica right here. So just going across. And that's going to kind of end, you know, the line of beads we put on. And then you're going to sew through this delica. So you want to be exiting the first delica after the 15-0s. So see, just like that. Make sure you change your needle here. And then you're going to take some 11-0s. Oops, I took 8-0s. Let me grab my 11-0s. Here we go. And you're just going to put on, you're going to sew through the next delica, so the next silver one. And that's what you're going to do all the way down. Just 11-0s through the delicas. And just be careful when you do this because it's a little tight here, and use your size 12 beading needle. And you see what that's just going to make it. Let me see if you can you see that? It's right there. But anyway, it's going to lift it up off your wrist. And then you're just going to, you know, repeat on this side everything we did, and then sew your threads in, and we'll finish up. We're back and we're done. And I just love the purple one. I think they're both really pretty. Sorry, my stones have fingerprints on them because they're really very, very sparkly. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a challenging piece, even though you're not using like a million different beads. It's challenging. It really challenges your tension, your using the proper needle slides for the proper segment. So really, you know, just take your time with this. Do it slowly. Don't try to finish it in one day. You'll be exhausted. For this sample, I tried to do a lot of it in one day, and I was so tired. I had to just go like have a cup of coffee and just sit outside for a little bit because it was exhausting. So it can be really tiring. So just take your time, do a little at a time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you make it and post it on Facebook. So I want to thank you again for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.